Hello! We're gonna do a December wrap-up. My name's Elena. This is my channel Still on Red. I did read a lot in December. I read like 10 plus things. The first graphic novel I have here is Haddon Hall, When David Invented Bowie by Nejib. So this is a translated graphic novel, which are more often than not my favorite type of graphic novel. This is a very basic outline of the beginning of Bowie's career, living in this big ass mansion with other bands, specifically his own bandmates. It goes a little bit into the members and their lives. It has these stunning illustrations. They're so pretty. I absolutely love this. At the point where this starts, Bowie has already like worked in the music industry for about 10 years as a really small artist. He's had multiple producers and he just hasn't gotten like that fame yet. Like he's even had a hit. I forget what song it was. One of his biggest songs, and it was already a hit, but he was so like naive to his own popularity. He didn't know like what to do with that. I would have liked a more in-depth history on Bowie's career. I also didn't know that he had a brother with schizophrenia, so that was really interesting how it demonstrated his relationship with his brother. I love this. I definitely recommend this to anyone. I'm gonna read the synopsis for this because this is really hard to otherwise explain what this is. A father and son go on a road trip to discover train station relics. A professor explains his intricate grading methods, and a pen pal correspondence gets more suggestive and dangerous. Three narrative strands weave in and out of John Hankiewicz's. Is that Hankiewicz? Out of John Hankiewicz's education through reveres, memories, and nostalgic abstraction to tell a story that could only be told in the comics medium. I agree. So I said there are some graphic novels that remind me of poetry. This is definitely one of them, and it weaves these three narratives together in a way that sort of confused me until I realized that there were three different narratives. I thought it was sort of like a displacement in time within one person's life, or I thought it was a generational story until I realized like these were three different individuals. They have three different voices. Yeah, I mean, if you're not like a patient graphic novel reader, then I wouldn't suggest this for you. It's a sequel to Sheets about a girl who owns a dry cleaner. Her mom's died, her dad's in a really deep depressive episode, and she befriends a ghost who is a really young boy. So in this one, the story continues. She's recently befriended the popular girls at her school, so she's sort of tweened between like being their friend and living in the real world versus dedicating so much time to her ghostly friends when she feels like eventually she's gonna have to move on anyways. On top of that, we have this character. So Eliza, who we see here taking a photo, she's a loner, she has no friends, she's really obsessed with ghosts. Marjorie indirectly sort of ends up bullying her because she's friends with a popular girl. She doesn't realize that she's bullying her really, like she's just more focused on herself and relationships that she's trying to like grow into, even though it doesn't feel genuine to her. Major trigger warning: suicidal thoughts, mental illness, even bullying. I would say even bullying. Thummler almost had me crying. Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulsen. I actually got this for Christmas. One day, a vampire moves up the hill. Actually, up the mountain. And everyone's scared. And they're like, well, Garlic, you're Garlic, and that's a vampire's biggest enemy. Go. And she's like, what the fudge? And you learn that she's sort of like a scaredy cat. She's very clumsy. She goes up to defeat this vampire. I won't tell you anything else, but I absolutely love this. This was so fucking adorable. I hope we get 12 million volumes out of this because I want to follow her for the rest of my life. She's so small. Can you imagine a little garlic cutie pie walking around growing garlic? Like, it sounds adorable to me. I read my first short story collection, The Houseguest and Other Stories by Amparo Davila. This is really wonderful. I loved it. It's a really short little thing. I read it in 2 sittings only. This is essentially about... She's so loud right now. Unwelcome guest. Unwelcome guest. Whether that person... Whether it's a person, whether it's a monster, whether it's a being, it's a thought, it's a form of imagination, it's a thing. It's some sort of entity that is an unwelcomed guest, and we don't always get a actually, we almost never get a clarification of what that unwelcome thing is, or like even can be. And so oftentimes the results leave our protagonists of each storyline sort of tormented and in their own hell. Love that. I remember one story was about a woman, and I'm pretty sure she just had sleep paralysis. Like, she straight up, I'm sure, had a sleep paralysis demon. I loved this. Maggie Nelson's Bluets. I also loved this, though I will admit I don't remember much. These are sort of little sonnets talking about life, art, sex, the power of color, the role color has or can have in our lives, which I loved reading because it's something, talking about the role of color in our lives is something I've talked to people about, and they're either like, Elena, that's such a you thing to think, or they're just like, I call bullshit. And I'm like, okay. This was a really good peek into who Maggie Nelson is as a writer. I haven't read anything else by her, so I would like to. I have On Freedom, and I think I'm really gonna like it. After reading this, I think I'm really gonna like it. And I have a friend who wears all blue. They just manifest everything, the color blue in their life. And they read this, and they said the audiobook, they're like, listen to the audiobook at sunset. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. Signs preceding the end of the world. I just found a sticky note. It said, it's like reading poetry. I love my thoughts. They're so plain. This is about a woman emigrating from, we assume, Mexico to America. She's trying to find her brother, send him a message. The thing is that this protagonist is so bold and so funny and courageous, and she's so herself. Like, I absolutely loved this protagonist so much. There's this part where she gets fucking shot, and she just walks it off. That's a baddie. The trip, she packs an extra blouse in case she wants to go clubbing. I'm sorry, you're doing the dangerous trek from Mexico to the US, and you're thinking about possibly clubbing. I love this. There's lots of great commentary on this book on BookTube. Lots of people who are able to reciprocate their thoughts and what this book is about. Duh, right? Duh. Duh is exactly what I was thinking. Duh. Ottessa Moshfegh is one of my favorite authors. I think this might be my favorite Moshfegh. I read all of Moshfegh, except for short story collection. It's about a woman. She hasn't had a really great life. She grew up with a really terrible dad and a mom who really just didn't give two fucks about her. She's very conservative in the way she presents herself. She works at this juvenile detention center as a secretary, and this new woman comes. He's infatuated with the way she looks, talks, her attitude, the way she carries herself, the way she dresses. Eileen sort of creates a friendship with her, and eventually Rebecca sort of pulls her into this criminal plot. I think this was brilliant. I love Moshfegh's books as audiobooks. I think personally for me, that's the best way to read them sometimes. Moshfegh, you are a witty oof. Right Baby by Tochi, Onyebuchi sort of tells a story of this brother and sister. The brother gets arrested, wrongfully so or something, or he's sent to jail, and the sister sort of has this supernatural power. For me, it just like did not hit the mark. No One Is Talking About This by Patricia. Lockwood. Iconic. It's like super chaotic and messy. We're supposed to follow this sort of social media star and the conversations that she has with herself, as well as on social media with other people, like her interactions with them. And it's really a lot. It's a lot to take in. The second half of this is definitely more plot heavy. Like the first part of it just feels a lot like Random Thoughts. A lot like Maggie Nelson's Bluets. It's like sonnet chapters, but within those chapters there are like literally these little sonnets of interactions and thoughts of hers, And the second part is much more plot heavy because the protagonist's sister is pregnant and she has a baby, and it's sort of through this relationship, having this bond with her niece, does what I think is like her coming to terms with her humanity, and taking a break, taking a step back from social media and sort of reconciling with herself in that space. This almost made me cry. Like, I finished this and I was like, fuck. Mona, bipolar, Exara? Okay, so this, in my opinion, was intense. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's about a woman, she's invited competition where they get like a big cash money prize. While being there, she's sort of coping with a relationship she's had. Whether it's ended recently or a long time ago, we don't know. Throughout the book, we're not really told. We get very vague memories of her and her partner, her or who we assume is her partner. She's got all these interpretations of the other writers in this program, some of which she agrees with, most of which she doesn't. She avoids them at all costs. And it isn't until like the last 6 pages of this book does it all come crashing down on you like a wall, where it's sort of revealed what led her to this point and what became of that relationship. Big trigger warning: sexual assault, depression. I think this was just too much for the space it takes up. It brought me back to this thought of like the reason why so many people like Sally Rooney. Her writing is accessible. It pushes out a really big important message. We enjoy her characters, we hate her characters, but we're able to understand them, we're able to empathize with them because of the way she writes is accessible and it's stunning. A wide audience of readers can understand that and can recognize that. And sometimes it makes me sad when I read books like this because I'm like, I think this is great, but I'm not fully convinced of it because I don't entirely understand it, or I can't sit through it and really appreciate it for not its content, but its writing. Does that make sense? Let's talk about Blueberries by Elena Savage. I think this is great. I think the hype around it is real. The essay collection about sexual assault, relationships, life, finding your career, womanhood, feminism. It's not told as like singular essays. There are some that have really interesting formats where it's almost like, oh, right here, like 2 columns. And so, you know, sticking to the left side is one continuous essay, sticking to the right side is one continuous essay. And overall, I enjoyed this. I would love to read more by Elena Savage. I hope she does come out with more. That being said, I love it. Therefore, I'm allowed to criticize it. There were moments in this book that made me feel uncomfortable with the way Elena Savage spoke about her privilege, because it seems like she's more than willing to call herself on her privilege as a white woman in Australia. There's this part, it's on page 88, if anyone wants to follow along. I feel like a church right now. I knew about rich people in the middle class because sometimes I was those things, but usually not. Think that she owned a horse, right? So I understand what she was saying. She sort of speaks to things that she doesn't have the right to speak to. She says, I guess this was awful in all the ways anyone can imagine, but you can't deny the community building aspect of local gang killings, especially when it's old, hardened career crimes with beef, and it doesn't really after your life, aside from the police tape blocking the passage to the fish and chip shop. I mean, sure, but what do you know about gangs? Something that makes my family uncomfortable is literally when white people do that, what she just did. Is like, what do you know about gangs? Like, what do you know about the bonding experience of gangs? You can watch movies, you can read books, but it's still an experience, like being in a gang that you don't understand. Community building by being in a gang, I didn't really like that. These metaphors of experiences that you literally don't know anything about. And as far as I'm aware, Elena Savage, you know, probably didn't live in the ghetto and didn't seem to be in the harm of gang killing. It's like white kids in high school at a wealthy middle-class high school singing Tupac. Like, yeah, you can admire Tupac's lyrics and his skill and his music. Same thing for Biggie. And you can say gang gang all you want, but like, you don't actually know what it's like to live in the ghetto. You literally don't understand to the full extent of what it is to experience and be at the hands of systemic racism. And that really bothered me. Elena Savage, you are, in caps, a poet. So I love this. I think this was incredible. But criticism needs to be said, in my opinion. This is one of my most disappointing books of 2021. The Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. These kids that have this opportunity to walk through their bedroom mirror and enter this castle where they've been given a year by the Wolf Queen, who is a little girl wearing a wolf mask, by the Wolf Queen to find a key that opens a door that will grant them any wish they want. I thought we were going to get a sort of storyline that was like them running around the castle figuring out these little mysteries. Or I thought, you know, this is an adult book, so maybe it'd be like really heavy-handed and sort of grim like Lord of the Flies, and we'd see blood. These kids for almost a full year play video games in this castle, and that's literally it. And the whole thing is like, these kids are at home because they're between the ages of 12 and 14 and they've dropped out of school. So this castle is their escape. And in general, I think this sucked. It was slow. I didn't like the children. I mean, they were okay. Had they been like more interesting and like done things in the castle, I think I really would have liked them. But otherwise, literally nothing happens in this book. Things I did like, the way some of these adults were portrayed, they were so supportive of their children. Like, okay, we know something has happened to you and you don't feel comfortable talking to us about it yet. So we're going to give you that space. We're going to give you that space. You want to take a break from school? Fine. You know what I mean? Come to us when you're ready. You know, we're going to try things, but we're going to try and work at your pace, okay? And I loved that. Because how often do you actually get that? In a book? In real life, nonetheless. To me, that's so admirable, to be so patient and willing to adapt to your child like that. It really was a beautiful thing to read. I think everyone, even if you don't like this book, I think everyone who's read this can agree that like the final twist, oh my gosh, so strong. I was like, why did the book not have this energy throughout the whole time? Apparently this is sort of based on a real like academic crisis that Japan was having with their students, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, read it, don't read it. Ice, Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I have never read smutty fiction. This is about a woman. She's abducted by aliens, and it looks like they're going to be sold into the intergalactic sex trade. The UFO does an emergency landing on this planet, and our main character here goes out trekking through this iceland, and she ends up coming into this blue man. His name is Victal. He and his people have this thing inside their chest that vibrates, and it lets them know when they've met the person for them, and it vibrates when he sees her, and the whole book sort of follows their relationship, them surviving in this winterous wonderland and going back to eventually save the other girl. The term horse dick was in this book about 3 times. So, Pestilence by Laura Thalassa. So there's a bookish subscription box that they are coming out with special editions of this book series. It's a quartet, and I was like, I don't know what that's about, but I have to read it. This isn't even smut. This is love. Girl, Sarah, what a basic ass name. She tries killing Pestilence, which is so stupid, right? He's a holy being. Like, he's literally out of this world. You can't kill him. That's so stupid. She tries killing him, and he's like, you know what? Fuck you, bitch. I'm gonna keep you as, like, a little token so people can see what happens when you try killing me. And so they sort of create this bond eventually over time. And, like, the first half of this book is so funny because all they do is throw shit at one another. Listen to this. She says, why don't you eat or drink? He says, because I don't have to. And she says, so? He says, so? He echoes, sounding affronted. He peers down at me, maybe to make sure I'm serious. I'm confused. Why should I eat or drink if I don't need to? He says, because it's fun and it tastes good. Listen to what she says next. Because it's fun and it tastes good. Well, except for my Aunt Millie's fruitcake. That shit tastes like a dirty asshole. So what made her do that? Because that's fucking hilarious. And this is about love. This is about love. Love is love. Love transcends humanity. Love can save people. Love can save lives. Love can save a person. Love. I DNF'd it. It's 3 Rooms by Joe Hamya. This just read so pretentious. You know, there's this woman working at a college as like a TA, or she's supposed to be like writing books or essays, something like that. She becomes obsessed with like a fellow peer, and it tries to have all these conversations on like immigration and socialism and like artists and creativity. The way it's put out for readers to understand is just kind of nonsense, to be honest. I forgot to say, for Bluets by Maggie Nelson, I created a list of blue things I see. And I added every blue sticker I could because I'm a 22-year-old lady. I'm going to list some of the blue things I saw while reading this book. My walls, that's true. The pile of sticky notes. My books on shelves and shelves on carts. The blue in the sky on the postcard Elizabeth sent. Blue in the water my cat swims in. No. Blue in the water my rat swims in. Some of these you're not going to understand. Blue on my moisturizer, blush, and lipstick. Blue on my Squashmallow Girls World. On my name tag. IKEA tart bag. And I have a quote, and I don't know where it's from. But it says, "It's always the tarps." Blue gowns. Water-breathing Tanjiro. And a tiny blue bunny. A boot on my pillow. Flowers on her bed. Lapis on my ring. A Sharpie, my cardigan. My Gatorade. This pen. Little Woman, candy wrapper, blue dip dyed daisies, Coraline, film camera, that book on display, wires tangled on the floor, mouse pad, these stickers, and I can't really understand the rest. But yeah, those are blue things that I saw while reading Bluets. You have a wonderful day. I hope you stay warm. I hope you stay cool. I think you look really cute today. Actually, I think you're hot. I'll see you later.